I'm so excited that you took the time to join us on the next episode of Beyond the Culture. This is the show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. I'm your host, Dr. David Walker. My guest today is Dr. Lottie Watson. Dr. Watson is a bilingual educational administrator with the Teaneck, New Jersey public school system. She is known for promoting a culture of collaboration and innovation by sharing the decision-making process with all school stakeholders. Dr. Watson is an out-of-the-box thinker. She believes in nurturing the learning environment through transformational leadership, emotional intelligence, and communication skills. So I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Please welcome my guest, Dr. Lottie Watson. Welcome, Dr. Watson.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I am doing great. And I am just so excited about having you on the show, especially during this particular climate where education is at the forefront of conversations all around at least the country, but around the world, but definitely within the United States. There's conversations about, reopening of the schools and things like that. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Okay. But I want to first start off by just talking about your particular school district. Okay. And so I want you to tell us about the Tneck School District. Give us the demographics of the school system. Talk about the community of Tneck, and so we can get a feel for the district and where you work.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me on. This is definitely a pleasure. It's wonderful to share the great things that are happening in my district. We are a very diverse community. And when I say diverse, I mean we have everything and everybody. It's a welcoming place to be, to work, to live, to meet and greet and walk in the steps of other people. Historically, Teaneck was the first school district in the country to integrate voluntarily. Mm-hmm. So we use that as a platform to collaborate amongst the community, collaborate and build strong homeschool communications. And the infrastructure is growing exponentially. We are doing things that are very different from other districts. Obviously, everyone amidst the COVID is trying to figure out how we're going to open back. Mm-hmm. We are in the north region of New Jersey. We're 10 minutes from the George Washington Bridge, 10 minutes from New York City. So we're in that hub of culture. Okay. It is a tree-lined school district, tree-lined community, very welcoming. The community is very strong, very outspoken, and that's what makes us different. Our students, their voices are heard. Okay. Our teachers are heard. Our administration takes great pride in listening and communicating and collaborating with everyone in the district. And it doesn't matter what title, so to speak, that you hold. Everyone is part of that community. So I'm very proud to be a part of that. And I'm very proud to be a part of that for going on 21 years now. Okay. So it's a wonderful environment to grow. And I have developed some very strong relationships in our district. And part of those relationships is what we're going to talk about today with culture and climate and the opportunities that we have been afforded through the U.S. Department of Education. So it's a wonderful place to be. It's great to be there. It's interesting to see how we're going to end up back in school, whether it's going to be traditional brick and mortar face-to-face, or if it's going to be some type of hybrid or blended learning.
Sure. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, just mm-hmm. to get your thoughts on school reopening. But you mentioned school climate and culture.
Yes.
I want you to first define that, and then we'll talk about why is it important. But first, could you just define that for the audience today?
Sure. any perspective, anyone in education will give you their perspectives on what culture and climate is. But ultimately, the climate is your environment. What happens in that environment? How does it look in that environment, whether it's aesthetically, physically, emotionally, socially? And the culture is the behaviors within that climate, within that environment. So pretty much what we're talking about is, how do we as a learning community define ourselves in our space? And in doing so, how do we ensure that it's safe, number one, for our students and staff? It's nurturing so that teaching and learning can take place, and that it provides that overall environment where everyone can feel safe and be uninhibited in their learning, because learning will take a different phase for every student at different developmental levels. So it's really about who we are as a school community and what our expectations are in that space of teaching and learning.
And why is it important, the school culture and climate? Talk about its importance.
Okay, what makes it most important is that, just like adults, we spend almost 80% of our time working. We're away from our families, so to speak. But wherever you are in that workspace, in our environment, is in schools. So we are responsible and held legally responsible for creating a space for our other children, which are students, and creating a space for them to learn and to learn uninhibitedly, to meet them where they are and grow them. We talk about student achievement, student growth. This is where we do that in this space. So what that looks like depends on what our expectations are of those students. And we have to expect the highest level of excellence from our students, regardless of their age group. Because if you set the bar high, the students more than likely will exceed that bar. So that's where we are. Culture and climate is what we're doing now. How are we going to reopen? We're thinking about that now, subconsciously, but that's what it is.
And I think it's very important because, as you just said, because it is how the school system is made up, is how you function, how you respond, and if you're not cognizant of the climate and culture, I don't think you can be as productive as you should be able to be.
Absolutely.
If you're not aware of it.
Absolutely.
And to understand how that district works.
Absolutely.
Because all districts are different.
Yes.
No school district is a one size fit all. So understanding your climate and culture is very important. You and I were in a conversation the other day, and we were talking about a grant that your school received.
Yes.
And I want you to talk a little bit about that, because funding is very important for schools.
Yes, it is.
Even though you get community support, parents pay their taxes, but schools always need as much support, from the federal government as possible. So
Yes.
You were sharing with me how your school received a grant, and I believe it's called the School Climate Transformation Grant.
Yes.
Local educational agencies. So talk about that and give us a better understanding about that grant you received.
Sure. I'm very excited to talk about that. It is a grant that is awarded to a variety of school districts across the country. And that also includes Alaska, okay, the US of A, all those states combined. And it's a grant that districts are awarded. First, our entire district was awarded. We have a total of 7 schools. We are bringing on an 8th school in September, depending on this COVID pandemic. But the grant includes 7 schools. We have 4 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and a high school. And this grant is a discretionary grant that's awarded to school districts over a course of a 5-year period. And the project, our specific project, details very specific programs that we are going to implement, and we've started that process. And what it does, it allows us to take an internal look at what we need to be that much more successful. Like I mentioned earlier, our district is a great place to be. It's a great learning space, but you can always be better. You can always grow stronger, and students will always exceed your expectations. So what do you do when you reach that plateau? You have to think outside the box and try and do something that's going to bring your students to that next level. And I believe that's what this grant does. It allows us to first implement several programs that I'll be leading, and hopefully, I can't say hopefully, I know that we will. It's just a matter of timing and, you know, data sharing. But I'd like for us to exceed our expectations on paper in black and white. So this grant, we were one of, I believe, 63 or 64 schools across the country that was awarded. We are the second cohort for 2019. And there are 4 school districts in New Jersey that were awarded this grant. And our district happens to be the district that received the most amount of funding in New Jersey. So we're really excited about it. It's been kind of quiet. You know, we have to take a backseat to safety and health with regards to the pandemic, but we're still working. Just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean that it's not working. So we're still working.
Right.
And I'm really, really excited about it. I'm so excited about it that it's hard to contain the energy. You know, you want to include everybody, all stakeholders. You want to hear those voices. You want to hear what the kids want. You want to hear what the parents and community needs. So we're hoping that this particular platform allows us to implement those elements, which we'll talk about shortly, and move our district to the next level.
So you also, I think we also talked about how you're going to, and I don't know if you want to have anything further to say about that, but I may move to the next subject about technology.
Yes.
How will technology come into place when you talk about the grant?
Okay.
How we use technology, you know, with the new paradigm that we're dealing with.
Right. So I'm going to finish up the last point and then jump right into the technology piece.
Okay.
That is part of where we are, our climate, so to speak.
Sure.
So part of our programming, we have 5 programs that we are wanting to implement over the course of 5 years. We would like to implement a social emotional learning curriculum across all schools in the district. We are currently revising our student code of conduct policy with students on that platform so that they have a voice. Usually the codes of conduct are established by the adults and the students' voices are lost. So we have that component. The beautification projects, which speaks to both internal and external facilities. Implementation of a mental health and wellness Olympiad. The first part of that was this year, we implemented an elementary and middle school mental health pilot. And that allowed for our youngest learners to have the SEL components and emotional support as we moved into that first phase of COVID, being locked down, so to speak. So those families were able to access mental health clinicians and support systems for free. That was all available through our grant. And then one of the last components is to enhance our character education and anti-bullying platforms. So in New Jersey, we have a HIB, which is harassment, intimidation, and bullying mandate. And the goal of that is to reduce bullying in schools. So we like to enhance that along with our character education. With regards to implementing those programs, I have to prepare for a blended hybrid format, whether we are face-to-face sometime or virtual sometimes or a combination of both. So part of that obviously is working with the school administrators to see what it is specifically at their building that is necessary. Each building, even within the district, has its own culture and climate. So it's most important to hear those voices and hear what those administrators see that's the best fit for their school, their parents, their community, their school community, as well as their students. I believe that before you can jump into a virtual platform, especially with students, you have to understand how to teach in that platform.
Okay.
And part of this grant will allow us to do that. We've done that for quite a bit since we've been out of the traditional school setting with lots of training issued by our district to try and prepare us as we move through the summer and prepare for an opening. So this grant will take another lens on that, dealing specifically with the students, their parents, to help support their children while we're either moving into this hybrid or blended learning platform or face-to-face. But the resources are there for us, and we want to take advantage of that wholeheartedly. Right now, technology is key. It's the next wave. It's the new learning platform for us, for everyone. Right. And we need to make sure that our students are in a position to take full advantage of that and to excel, not to just meet the standards and exceed, but to excel exponentially. And this grant will allow us a resource and an opportunity to do that for our families and our students.
Perfect. Obviously when it comes to, you have a outstanding school district, everybody's, working, trying to raise the level, the education level, the academic level, all the students. You talked about how you're going to use the grant, but I just want to, just talk a little bit about how you're continuously promoting, the vision of the district. And spotlight some things for us, and then who's leading that charge.
Okay, so we have quite a bit of things going on.
Okay.
We have our summer bridge program that's led by one of our directors. I won't call anyone's name because I didn't get prior permission, and I don't want to put them on a spotlight, although I want to say we're doing a great job and I'd love to give them that piece of light, but I did not get prior permission. But we do have a summer bridge program for our students that reduces that summer slide before we get back into our traditional calendar school year. We have our Beyond Diversity Committee, which speaks to everything that's happening currently in our climate with the Black Lives Matter, anti-racist and that movement. Our students are very well involved in that. And that will be also part of our code of conduct when we start talking about language and how that language looks when we are dealing with students and what's equitable for students. And we could talk about equity and equality all day long, but just, those individuals that are leading those two specific platforms are doing a wonderful job. And then this grant will be the next capstone. And like I said, we have so many things going on, and of course I'm not privy to all of it, but I try to keep my ear to the ground and follow what our district is doing, because our vision, our mission in our district is to create an advantage for our students that they can get nowhere else. And we're starting that, we're doing that. So this is just another piece to promote that. And having the support from the community, from our administrators, from the top all the way down to the last kid coming into the district. It's very, very important. And I think we're doing that. And I believe a lot of districts are doing it. But I think we have an advantage using this grant to help propel a lot of the things that are currently happening and that will continue to happen over the course of the next school year.
Yes, it definitely seems as though, the Tneck School District is really, progressive. They're on point in terms of, like I said, the academic achievement of their students. Yeah. I want to ask you a question because, as you know, and as I know, there's been a lot of conversations about the reopening of schools. And, I know that you're not the superintendent of schools, and you may not have all the information surrounding what the administration is doing. But what do you feel in terms of the conversation about the reopening of schools? What are your feelings about that in terms of whether schools should reopen, whether they should start, you use the term brick and mortar, online learning? What's your philosophy, your understanding of what's the best strategy to use?
Well, I think my philosophy overall for education is to provide a safe, nurturing, learning environment for teachers, instructional staff, administrators, for everybody, so
Right.
that a strong pedagogy is laid, as well as the enhancement of student success.
Hmm.
How we do that, we have to come together as a community to do that. So I believe that at some point, as long as our students' safety is the number one priority, we will figure out a way how to make it work.
Okay.
Whether that be limited face-to-face, traditional teaching and learning, or whether it be a combination of the hybrid component. Um, I feel as long as our students and our staff and everyone is safe, we can come to an agreement as to how we implement that. And I think that's what our district is doing now, trying to figure out the best way that will allow us to continue the great education that we provide, in addition to doing that in a safe and secure environment.
Would you say that the district is extremely concerned about, kids in school? And again, here's another question. How effective is online learning with our students today? Because it's new. I mean,
Right.
I know a lot of colleges have online learning or distance learning, and well, when you're an adult, you can kind of handle it. But now we're talking about children,
Right.
and I know that at the end of last year, you were kind of forced into it,
Right.
because you had to close the schools. So after that, with that previous experience and then going forward, what do you think? How effective is online learning, or you think it's good, but it needs some improvements? What do you think about it?
I think overall, it is a platform that we have to embrace.
Okay.
Our students, as much as we like to not discuss the online learning component, our students, regardless of their age level, everyone has that small device, that mobile device.
Right, right.
And the students know how to use that much more effectively and much more efficiently than most adults.
Mm-hmm.
But the key is teaching them how to use it for academic success. That's the key. That's the difference.
Okay.
Um, how we do that will vary between districts. Specifically in our district, I like to say from my own experience, we have to teach them what our expectations are in that virtual learning environment. If we're going to go hybrid as one component, we have to express to them as if we were face-to-face what the expectations are. That doesn't change. But we also have to teach them how to use how to exceed those expectations in a virtual community. We talk about digital citizenship. We talk about, in New Jersey, the anti-bullying law, cyberbullying. You still have to keep those elements in the forefront when you're teaching students how to be effective in an online learning platform. And we can pick out a variety of schools who have done it over the last 20 some odd years. There are plenty of them out there. And possibly looking at what they've done to be successful. And then you take what's applicable for your specific climate and your specific culture to determine what's best for you all to move, how you should move. I think our district does a really great job in providing us those resources. But again, it's new, and we have to be very comfortable with how we're going to, share that out with the community, and most importantly, our staff, who's going to have to implement it, and then our students. But we can use this last quarter, this last marking period, from March to June, to determine how we move. There's data there.
Okay.
Now, how do we hone that data will depend on, your specific needs. We do what's called a SWOT analysis.
That's
And
right.
I'm sure you're very well aware of that.
Sure.
You take your weakness, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, and you look at that across all the things that occurred during that time we were out. Obviously there was some slip in learning because we were just thrown in it, but we can use that as a positive. It does not always have to be a negative. We can turn that into a positive and use that data to help guide us as we move into September. And September is right around the corner. So we're not going to have all of the information in 1 month, but we can start mining that information and start preparing some talking points and looking at things that will help us as we move through October, November, and December. And now we're into the second part of the school year. But that's how we do it. And it's not a quick fix. I think some people believe now that we're in it, you got to have some answers right away. That's
Right.
not how data collection and data analysis works. But you have to be patient during those implementation dips. And that's where people falter sometimes. But again, I think our district is doing a really good job trying to mine that data, use that for our best benefit, and discussing it.
Okay.
Now we're at a point where we're starting to talk about what we need. We're starting to do that analysis, and talk about what we need and how we're going to prepare to open. And I have not seen the plan yet. I'm sure it's coming out pretty soon because our New Jersey deadline is next week.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that so that it can help me, put on my thinking cap and brainstorm with, people in my circle, meaning my colleagues, to come up with the best programs and maybe look at the programs we have to implement in the grant and see how we can tweak them to make them that much more effective for our students and our staff. So I think this is a good space that we're in.
Okay.
It's just an uncomfortable space.
Right.
And in education, you just have to be comfortable sometimes with being uncomfortable until you can really drive home everything that you need to share out with the community, collaborate with them, get some feedback, and then we start the cycle all over again. It's all about collaboration and teamwork. And I've been an athlete all my life, so teamwork is imperative to success.
Right.
And we have to work together, and I think we're doing that. They're in small bits, but I think we're doing it. And it's just like the body. The arm does this piece, the leg does that piece. We come back together, and now we're a fully functioning system. So I think that's where we are. I think we're doing a really good job at it. It's very exciting to see how it's all going to play out. I'm excited about that, but I'm ready to dig in and start working. I'm ready to get to work. And
all right.
yeah, it's time.
And just share just quickly about the community support, teachers, parents. I mean, like I said, I know that we're trying to reopen the schools, and I'm sure teachers and parents have their concerns.
Yes.
So just share just a little bit about, what you're hearing, in the community about, coming back with the COVID situation with, teachers, parents, and other community members.
Well, I believe right now everyone is trying to determine the best and most safe way of doing it. And if we are doing a face-to-face, how does that look? Right. And I think that's where the conversation is going to really be shared when the plan is shared with the overall community. I believe teachers are concerned about, how does it look for them in the classroom? You're in it's not secluded, but you're in an enclosed space, possibly with other adults or other children. And, there's always that element of safety. Right. And so everyone's really concerned about that. I think once the plan is rolled out and it's shared and the details are shared with us, how we're going to do that, I think it will quell a lot of inquiring minds, so to speak. But I just think it's a conversation. And once that conversation is had, I think people will be a little bit more comfortable
Mm-hmm.
And then we can talk, the next speaking points. It's not a perfect plan, but it's something for us to discuss. We have a foundation, and we can start discussing what it actually looks like as we prepare to open.
You have you have really enlightened us on, just how it really is happening at the school level, right there on the ground. Because again, you watch television, you hear so much chatter about, schools and, opinions, but, I'm so grateful that the Tneck public schools is on the ball.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and you guys are doing a great job. Your, your students are first, education is first.
Yes.
The well-being of, mental and physical growth of your community is paramount to you. And I really appreciate that. And so having you on today was truly inspirational, telling us that, there is some good education going on in the state of New Jersey.
Absolutely.
So I just want you to give us some contact information for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can be reached generally at my email. I do a lot of email communications, and that's at my work email is lwatson@tneckschools.org. My professional email address is Dr. DrLottieMWatson, and that's Dr. Lottie M. Watson @gmail.com. I am on Facebook. I tend to do a lot of surfing, but not too much communication. I am on LinkedIn, and I am on Twitter, and both of those are at Dr. Lottie M.
All right. Well, Dr. Watson, I want to thank you for being on our show today. And as I say to all the guests that I have on the show, after you tell us about how you are impacting your community, I always say that you are someone that has gone beyond the culture. And we appreciate you for being with us today. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walker, for having me on. And hopefully I can report back to you at some time later in the future how things are moving at the Tneck, so we like to say.
All right. You take care.
Thank you very much. You have a great afternoon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.